Hello everyone, welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I'm Rainbow.
Now it's part 2 of our story for this month. It's kind of a nice Christmas story. Remember, a string of blue beads. And there was Pete. He was kind of a lonely guy, but he had a shop he inherited from his grandfather. And in that shop, he sold lots of interesting old stuff, from jewelry to toys, things like that. Anything that might just be interesting or curious to customers who come in. And one day, an interesting customer came in, right?
A little girl.
Yeah.
She was really pretty. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. And she was also very sweet, a sweet young girl.
That's right, but she'd had a bad year, right?
Yeah,
her mother had died. She had an older sister. Now the older sister was kind of the mom, was taking care of her. And everything was, of course, much harder and also very sad because their loving mother was no longer around. So this girl wanted to buy her sister a nice gift. She saw this string of blue beads from our title, but she didn't really have enough money to pay for them.
Yeah, she just took out a handful of pennies and gave it to the shopkeeper, but he was also a really kind person.
Yeah, he gave them to her anyways. He wrapped them up beautifully as a Christmas gift, and he said, just take them. You know, you don't have enough money, that's fine. He didn't actually tell her.
Yeah, he didn't say it.
He just decided to do this kind thing. Now, the interesting thing is, that's kind of like an end to a story, right? The girl comes in, she's had a bad year, he sees this, he does something kind, and then she goes away. All right, that's kind of a nice ending to a story, but it's not the ending to our story. We're only halfway through. So my question is, what is going to happen next in our story of a string of blue beads?
Yeah, are they friends now?
Oh no, I think a surprise might be heading our way.
Somebody comes into the shop?
Who knows, maybe, and we haven't even seen Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Santa if this is a Christmas story? So many questions, and the only way to get the answers is to read part 2. So let's do that now. After Jean Grace left his shop, Pete couldn't help but feel a sense of grief. Jean reminded him of a girl he used to love, who also had golden hair and blue eyes. The blue beads were supposed to be hers before she tragically died in an accident. Over the next week, Pete found himself constantly thinking about the girl and remembering the love he had lost. All right, a string of blue beads, part 2. Let's find out what happens. It says, after Jean Grace left his shop, Pete couldn't help but feel a sense of grief.
He was sad.
That's interesting. So, of course, the little girl, that was Jean Grace. She bought the beads, he wrapped them, and then she left. And after she left, you'd think Pete might feel, you know, a little bit happy because he did a kind thing for this young girl. You know, something kind of a good, warm feeling. But instead we read, he felt a sense of grief. Grief is like great sadness. If someone close to you dies in those first few days or weeks, you would feel great grief, this tremendous sense of losing something super valuable, something you really loved. It's a tremendously sad feeling. So why does he feel grief? Well, it says next, Jean reminded him of a girl he used to love, who also had golden hair and blue eyes. Wow, that's very interesting. So this young girl, Jean Grace, reminded him of someone he knew, I guess from long ago. Maybe he was a young man, his first
teenager,
his first love or something like that. And she actually looked quite similar. So that's why he felt grief. He's kind of still heartbroken over losing this lover, this close friend of his or whoever, a long time ago. And when, of course, you're reminded of that, a lot of those feelings will come back, right?
Yeah, so to remind is to cause to remember. So if somebody reminds you, hey, don't forget you have to come over at 5 o'clock, that's like putting the idea in your mind, so you're like, I remember. So if someone else reminds you of a girl that you loved, it's because that image is so similar, you make a connection in your brain and you remember that person that you loved. So I have a sentence for you. You remind me of someone I once knew. It means maybe the way you talk, maybe the way you look, maybe your hair. Oh, it's so familiar and it brings up my own memory and I'm being reminded, or it was a reminder for me. So we're going to continue on with this article. The next sentence says, the blue beads were supposed to be hers before she tragically died in an accident. So not only is there a connection between how the little girl looks, it was also a bead between the connection. It was also a connection between the beads, which was that the necklace was supposed to be for the girl he loved.
Wow, so this is a very personal thing that Pete sold to this young girl. It wasn't just some jewelry in his shop. It was jewelry he had bought for his girlfriend long ago, but he never gave it to her because she died in an accident. And he was so willing, so happy to give it up to this girl. She didn't have enough money for it, but she reminded him of his old friend, and that was enough to make him think she is the right person to give these special beads to. Now, an accident, of course, is something that happens that is not planned, and it usually has some kind of bad result.
Yeah.
All right, an accident is something you didn't expect, you didn't know it was going to happen, you certainly didn't plan for it to happen. It happens, and usually it's not a good thing. We think of traffic accidents, bicycle accidents. If you knock something off a table and spill it all over the floor on your clothes, that's an accident. You know, all these things that we do. Sometimes we're not paying attention. Sometimes there's just a bit of bad luck involved. But there are accidents that do happen. When they're good accidents, like maybe you sit down in a movie theater right next to an old friend you haven't seen. Oh, look who it is. That's kind of a surprise. We might call that a happy accident.
Yeah, kind of interesting to put those two words together, right?
Exactly, and it also shows you that normally accidents are not happy. They're usually bad things. Here's a way to have an accident. Texting while driving is sure to cause an accident.
Ooh, bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that's an accident because you're just doing something really silly.
Seriously.
But of course, something bad could happen. You didn't want it to. You didn't plan for it, but that would be your accident. All right, back to the article. It says, over the next week, Pete found himself constantly thinking about the girl and remembering the love he had lost. Wow, you'd expect him, you know, in those moments when he sees the girl or right after she leaves the shop, he would be thinking of her, but she really stuck in his mind, and these memories of his old friend, his old girlfriend, also stuck in his mind. He was constantly thinking about these things over the next few days and even week.
That's right. So constantly is an adverb. You'll see an ly at the end. Constantly means to do something again and again and again, or to think of something again and again and again without stopping. So it's a continued process. So if I'm constantly thinking about someone, that means maybe I'm eating and I think of that person. Maybe I'm sleeping and I think of them. I'm working and suddenly they come into my mind. It's all the time and it doesn't stop. I have a sentence for you. My aunt constantly sends me emails containing health advice. Every time she reads something, she's like, don't eat this, you gotta do that, that will be better for you. Sending articles a lot, like 3 emails a week. That's like regularly. Constantly is regularly. All right, so before we find out what's gonna happen with our story, we're gonna go take a break and we'll see you back very soon.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。我们继续来读《A String of Blue Beads》这个故事。小女孩 Jean Grace， 她带着包装好的蓝色珠链离开商店之后 ，Pete 不禁感到一阵悲伤。这可不是因为这个珠链便宜卖害他亏了很多钱而悲伤，这是因为Jean Grace 让他想起以前爱过的一个女孩，那个女孩也是金发蓝眼，可惜她不幸死于一场事故。那串蓝色珠链原本应该是她的。 接下来的一周呢 ，Pete 就发现自己经常想着那个女孩，也想起他所失去的爱人。我们来看看单字 remind 这个动词，它表示使想起或者是提醒。Remind somebody of 加名词，表示使某人想起什么。那在 remind 后面加上 er 变成 reminder， 那它就可以表达使人回忆起某事的事物，或者是提醒物。下一个单字 accident 表示意外、事故，还有 constantly 这是副词，可以表达经常地、不断地或是始终地。那么补充单字 grieve， 它表示悲伤、悲痛，尤其是因为某人死亡而引起的悲伤。Mike 老师就提到说，在失去亲人时可能会感到巨大的悲伤，这时候老师用到 tremendous 这个字 ，tremendous tremendous 表示巨大的、极大的，也可以表达惊人的。这边3个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看第一个重点是 can't help but 加上原形动词，是表达忍不住不禁怎么样怎么样。那这个用法呢，是表达无法克制自己的情绪或者是行为。can't help 之后呢，也可以接动词 ing， 例如 she can't help but smile at the photo， 也可以说 she can't help smiling at the photo， 她不由自主地对着照片微笑。那其实猫王也有一首著名的情歌，叫做 Can't Help Falling in Love。同学们可以用这个方式来记说 can't help 后面是接动词 ing， 就是 But I can't help falling in love with you， 但我情不自禁地爱上你，都融化了。好，下一个重点是 used to 加上原形动词，它是表达过去曾经怎么样，过去经常怎么样。这个用法是表达过去的习惯啊，或是状况，暗示说现在的情况已经有所改变。例如I used to drink coffee every morning。 我以前每天早上都会喝咖啡，现在没有这个习惯了。那补充一下，如果是 be used to 或者是 get used to 加上名词或动名词，则是表达开始习惯于什么。那特别注意，这时候 to 是介系词，后面要接名词或动名词哦。像 I'm used to drinking coffee every morning， 这意思是我习惯每天早上喝咖啡哦。好，下一个重点是 find 加受词补语，它是表达发现、发掘什么什么处于某种状态。那么动词 find 在这边是指发现、发掘。那受词补语呢，常常会用现在分词 VING、过去分词 PP、形容词、介系词、片语等等。举例来说I found my mom asleep on the couch with the TV on。 我发现我妈在沙发上睡着了，电视还开着呢。好，另外呢，也可以用 find oneself 去接受词补语，来表达发现自己不知不觉在做某事。像 She often finds herself thinking about the boy。 她时常发现自己在想那个男孩。好，那这回课文中。
Just before midnight on Christmas Eve, another young woman with golden hair and blue eyes entered Pete's shop. She took out the string of beads and asked him whom he had sold them to. She was a small girl. Her name was Jean, he said. The woman wondered how her little sister could have paid for them. But Pete told her that she had paid the biggest price anyone can ever pay. She gave all she had. Pete quickly rewrapped the beads and offered to walk the woman home since it was Christmas and he had no one to give anything to. Together, Pete and the young woman walked out of the little shop on a hopeful Christmas morning.
Okay, so we'll continue with the article and we go to see Pete's story. Just before midnight on Christmas Eve, another young woman with golden hair and blue eyes entered Pete's shop. Again? Who is she? She took out the string of beads and asked him who he had sold them to.
Very interesting. She asked him whom he had sold them to. This must be the older sister of the young girl, Jean Grace, who bought them, right?
Yeah.
Well, Pete tells her because he probably figures out this is probably the lady or the girl who the younger girl bought the gift for, so he says she was a small girl. Her name was Jean, he said, all right, because that's what he remembers from this time a week or so ago when he sold this string of beads to the girl. And then we read, the woman wondered how her little sister could have paid for them because this older woman probably knows that they're quite expensive, and she also knows that her younger sister has just a few pennies usually. She doesn't have dollars lying around to buy expensive gifts with, so how did she afford to pay for these quite expensive beads? But Pete told her that she had paid the biggest price anyone can ever pay. She gave all she had. Oh, that's very nice. And a very nice way to say it, too. Yes, she didn't have all the money to pay for the full price, but she gave me everything she had. She couldn't give a bit more. And that really shows how much she wanted these beads. She wasn't trying to get them on sale. She probably knew that maybe it's not enough, but it's all I have. So hopefully that will be enough. And for Pete, it was.
Pete quickly rewrapped the beads and offered to walk the woman home since it was Christmas and he had no one to give anything to because he was a lonely man, as we learned before.
Interesting.
Did they become friends?
Well, who knows? That's in part 3, which we're not going to do. But so he wrapped them up pretty again and he gave them back to her and he went home with her just to make sure she got home, right? The ground could be icy. He doesn't want her to slip and fall and get hurt on Christmas Day. He's just being a gentleman. Together, it says, Pete and the young woman walked out of the little shop on a hopeful Christmas morning.
Ooh, we've got the word hopeful. That's good news for them.
That is good. Every Christmas morning, I think, is a little bit hopeful, so that's nice.
Yeah, and hopeful means full of hope. So when you see F-U-L as an adjective, you can take that word before, and that's what it adds more of. So full of hope is something that makes you feel very happy because you think something new is about to happen, and you feel this light feeling in your heart that everything bad from before would have left because you're about to move on to a new beginning. That's the feeling of hope. Christmas feels hopeful because the holiday season and people are with each other and the new year is coming. You just feel maybe very grateful or happy for what could be about to happen. I have a sentence for you. The movie ended with a hopeful scene. So we don't know what will happen, but we are happy about it and we look forward to it. So when you're hopeful about something, you look forward to it. And I think we can look forward to a happy ending for Pete.
Who knows? Yeah, it's a very hopeful ending because, you know, maybe this girl who looks like his old love will become his new love. Maybe little Jean Grace will have sort of parents, right?
I think so.
Her older sister gets married. Who knows? But anyway, we do know they're going to have a wonderful Christmas together, probably a better Christmas than they were expecting because now they're together. And yes, now we also have a lot of hope for good things in the future for all of them. All right, let's go to our what do you think question. What do you think? Here's a question. What's the most generous thing you've ever done for someone? Pete giving those expensive beads to the girl for almost no money. That was a very generous thing he did, right? So what's a generous thing that you've done for people or another person?
I had a friend who didn't have an apartment to stay in after the visa ran out. So then I offered her to stay at my house for 2 weeks before she went back home to Australia.
Oh, that was very nice. You kind of helped her out in a difficult situation. She would have had to maybe pay for a hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and she had 4 kids.
Oh
so
my
we
gosh.
didn't want her to spend more money on it.
You really did a lot of good for her because that would have been a lot of pressure. How do I take care of these kids? Where will we sleep? Go to Rainbow's place. A very kind thing to do. And that's the kind thing we hope to do and hope for other people to do around Christmas season. It is a time of giving and kindness and love. So let's hope you guys all have a great Christmas. We'll see you back here very soon. And until then, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
And a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
就在圣诞夜的午夜前，另一位金发蓝眼的年轻女子走进 Pete 的商店。原来啊，她就是 Jean Grace 的姐姐。她很纳闷自己的妹妹怎么可能付得起钱呢？ Pete 告诉她 ，Jean Grace 付了任何人能付出的最高价格，她付出她所有的一切，她把她所有的钱都交出来了。那最后 Pete 很快的就把珠链重新包装好，然后也提出说要陪女子走回家。因为是圣诞节，那反正他也是孤独的人，也没有任何人可以送礼。于是呢，在一个充满希望的圣诞节早晨 ，Pete 就跟女子一起走出这间小店了。好，单字 hopeful， 它是形容词，形容充满希望的，被寄予希望的。它的字尾 ful 就是形容词字尾，可以表达充满什么的，或是有什么特质的。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
After Jean Grace left his shop, Pete couldn't help but feel a sense of grief. Jean reminded him of a girl he used to love, who also had golden hair and blue eyes. The blue beads were supposed to be hers before she tragically died in an accident. Over the next week, Pete found himself constantly thinking about the girl and remembering the love he had lost. Just before midnight on Christmas Eve, another young woman with golden hair and blue eyes entered Pete's shop. She took out the string of beads and asked him whom he had sold them to. She was a small girl. Her name was Jean, he said. The woman wondered how her little sister could have paid for them. But Pete told her that she had paid the biggest price anyone can ever pay. She gave all she had. Pete quickly rewrapped the beads and offered to walk the woman home since it was Christmas and he had no one to give anything to. Together, Pete and the young woman walked out of the little shop on a hopeful Christmas morning.
Hey everyone, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Toi.
And today we're playing Guess the Bear, where we each have 3 cards with words or phrases on them that we have to get the other person to guess. And instead of saying those words or phrases, we're going to say the word bear. So are you ready, Toi?
I am.
All right, let's get started. First word, noun. There was a bear at the factory yesterday, and the bear was caused by reckless driving.
Accident?
Yes, very good. All right, verb, 1 word. Bear me to call the doctor tomorrow, or I'll forget. And the teacher bared the students to follow the rules.
Said. Tell.
Bear me to call the doctor tomorrow, or I'll forget.
So it's not tell me. Remind me?
Yes, very good.
Oh, yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, phrase, 3 words. I bear notice you seem sad lately. And he bear wonder what happened to her.
3 words. So read them
I
again.
bear notice you seem sad lately.
I noticed that. No, that's 2 words. I know.
He bear wonder what happened to her.
Constantly think about?
Not quite.
Constantly remind.
This one's really hard. Yeah, it's hard to guess. It's
There's so many things.
can't help but. So it's I can't help but notice you seem sad lately. And he can't help but wonder what happened to her.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah,
But
it's a good one.
It's a little hard.
Too hard.
Okay, so are you ready? Okay, Jamie. Ready? Adverb, 1 word. It rained bear for about a week or so. He is bear trying to get her attention.
Is it constantly?
Yes, it is. Very good. Next one, adjective, 1 word.
Okay.
Jen was bear. She would make the soccer team. 2, a lot of people are very bear for the future.
Is it hopeful?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Good job. Last one.
Okay.
Phrase, 2 words. We bear live right across the street from one another. 2, I bear work in an old bookstore downtown.
Have always? Wait, can you say it again?
We bear live right across the street from one another. Okay. And then 2, I bear work in an old bookstore downtown.
I have no idea. Bear work in I never have. No, I don't know.
This one was hard. It could have been anything. So, used to.
Oh,
We used to live right across the street from one another. Okay. I used to work in an old bookstore downtown. So it could have been anything because there's no tense. There was no other clues.
It's like it has to do with time, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
See you next time.